The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
Hi, I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I am so delighted today to introduce our guest, Amy Curti, who's an instrumental community member here in the Santa Maria Valley, has been a former board president of the Orchid Children's Art Foundation, also on the board currently of CALM, of which we'll define and talk about in this show, but truly a contributor to Santa Maria Valley in so many different ways. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so very honored.
I can't wait to talk about all of the different ways in which you contribute and influence and impact Santa Maria Valley. But before we get into all of that, let's go back to your childhood and talk about where you were born, where you grew up, a little bit about your childhood.
Okay. Well, I'm a Santa Barbara County girl. I've lived all over Santa Barbara County, starting with Santa Barbara as my birthplace, and went through the school system there until junior high, and my family decided to move from Santa Barbara to the San Ynez Valley, where they could have more property, more land for horses and that sort of thing. So I went to San Ynez High School, graduated in 1991, and then I left. I'm going fast, but I left and went to Boston for my first year of college, and from there found out I don't like winter, and came back, and I'm an alumni of Westmont. So
Fantastic.
Back to Santa Barbara.
Fantastic. So you did go quickly, and I'm going to go back just a minute here for Santa Barbara. What elementary and junior high schools did you attend?
I was at Monte Vista Elementary School all the way, and I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Locamore, my sixth grade teacher who always did musicals every year and helped me discover my voice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Junior high, you went to?
We were in the San Ynez Valley then, and I did do a private Christian school, San Ynez Christian Academy.
Excellent. And then San Ynez
on
High
to San
School.
Ynez High, yeah.
And so when you went to, you said Boston, what did you go to study?
I went to study music, and that was my passion, and I really wanted to be a performing artist. And I realized quickly into the first semester of my major that really that was on a path to be teaching music, and that at that point wasn't what I was looking for. And so I made a switch to English. I've always been an avid reader. My parents always had books in the house. We were always reading, and it was a really natural fit. And of course, the irony in all of this is I've ended up being a teacher. So as much as I was avoiding becoming one, I am one.
It was what your naturally was your calling,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So from Boston to Westmont.
Yes.
And I think you went to different schools in between. Did I understand Europe, England?
Well, Westmont offers an abroad program, and so my senior year I spent a semester in England, in the UK, and we actually ended that trip with 2 weeks in Israel, where we were studying Jewish literature. And so I had an incredible, such an incredible time in the UK that I ended up returning there to do my master's degree and spent 3 years in England doing that.
Fascinating. So at the end of your college time, you were you had a teaching credential, sounds like, or you were ready to teach, or you were going to teach. And so talk about your first jobs in a classroom or in a school.
Well, the funny thing about that was that I did not get my credential when I was in college, and I still did not think I was going to be a teacher.
Okay.
I really fought that hard. But that was really what I was born for. But my first job was when I started the credential program. I got a job after just taking one class as an emergency credential teacher at Cabrillo High School.
Okay.
And I really believe that's the first experience I've had where you just dive into the deep end and you go for it. Even though I was absolutely not ready. I certainly was not ready to know how to manage a classroom. I could teach literature, I could teach my love and passion for books, but I wasn't quite sure how to manage behavior.
And so you were an instructional assistant at Cabrillo, and I understand that you were also a reading intervention specialist at an education center.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, when I became a mother, I realized that teaching English full-time was going to be a real struggle. In grading all those papers and spending time with my babies. And so I found out about a wonderful program actually out of San Luis Obispo called Linda Mood Bell, where they teach reading intervention. And I got that training very quickly and started to market myself as a private reading tutor instructor, and got this wonderful opportunity at the San Ynez Tribal Hall of Chumash Indians to work with students there who needed extra tutoring, extra support. And from there, it was like I was able to figure out that perfect way to still do what I love, which is to teach and to help children, but also spend the majority of the time with my family.
Fantastic. And the Chumash Education Center will come back into play in a little bit, because we'll talk about Calm and its reach into education. So we'll put that on a shelf for a moment and make sure to come back to it. But I really enjoy hearing about your early stages of teaching in the way that you were teaching, which was an instructional assistant as well as a reading intervention specialist. So let's talk a little bit about some of this work you've done with so many different boards. And if we were to trace this arc, I feel like the beginning started with the Orchid Children's Arts Foundation. Do I have that right?
You do have that right.
Okay.
And that was, one of those, I always call these divine appointments, where I was invited into a board, probably for a very different reason than the person invited me into. At that time, we had opened up a restaurant in Old Orchid, Trattoria Lovatos, and I was really just supporting my husband in that business and raising our children at the time. And I was invited by one of the board members to come alongside and become part of the board. I had had no experience working on a board. I didn't understand really what happened. I quickly understood I was there, invited maybe for a community connection reason, but it became so much bigger. And somehow, after a couple of years of serving just as a board member, I became the president of the Orchid Arts Foundation. And I did not feel equipped. I did not feel ready, but I had this incredible support of the board that said, "We will be with you every step of the way, Amy. We have your back." And that really, really, really built up my leadership skills and propelled me forward to do a lot more work in the community.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like, first of all, a very smart board to have asked you to serve, and then to have you serve as a board president. But really the mission is around serving youth and arts education. So talk a little bit about the OCAF and its mission and goals.
Well, OCAF, when I was part of it, was very much, it had been a fundraising board, really, to bring arts into the community and into the schools. But quickly for me, I realized we were really lacking some programming and offering things like a glee club and summer workshops for drama and art and things like that. And so I started to get very focused on programming and creating more opportunities for youth. And it felt very much like I was just sort of paving the way and making room for our funding through the school district as well to start to really rise, so that we could have these programs in every school for every child who did not have to pay to be able to learn how to play an instrument or to learn how to act and sing. So I feel really, really proud of that early programming work. And now OCAF is now able to focus more on fundraising again and bringing even more to the community.
Fantastic. Talk about impact. And what weaves through all of your story has to do with arts and music and theater and on all of that. Let's go back to then specific to that Children's Creative Project, because you've been an instructor for Children's Creative Project. It interacts with the OCAF still.
That's right.
So what was your, in terms of your interaction with the Children's Creative Project, which is a program out of the Santa Barbara County Education Office?
That's right. So through OCAF, I learned about the Children's Creative Project. I learned what they were bringing into the schools. I learned that they were hiring professional artists in the community to come into the schools and give these children an opportunity to learn a new form of art. And quickly I realized I can do this. And so then it became a little bit of a conflict to be on the board because now I am a paid artist through the Children's Creative Project, which we're helping to fund.
Right.
And so that was one of the reasons why I had to say goodbye to that experience. Of course, there were many others awaiting me, but at the time that it was a hard decision. But my role in being able to work in the schools, when the Orchid School District discontinued having the program, the Artist in Residence program, because they were able to fund full-time artists to come into the schools, which is an amazing thing, and I'm so grateful. I went over to the Santa Maria School District, and I was able to work at several of the schools there and just work with children that had never sung.
Right.
Had never found their voice. And it was the most rewarding job. It was also the worst paying job I've ever had, but the most rewarding. And I'm so grateful for those connections I made, for those children that still come up to me in the grocery store and thank me.
That's wonderful.
It's really rewarding work.
Very impactful for sure. Another theme in terms of the music and the teaching is the fact that everywhere you go, you get pulled up to be in this leadership position. Amy, I want you to know that's a theme for you. It also is a theme in the Women's Fund of Santa Barbara County. I understand you were on the board and then president as well. Say a little bit about that.
The Women's Fund was an organization that I was not familiar with whatsoever until I was given a personal invitation by a very impactful woman in the community that I would also call a mentor, Gail Pratt. And I was invited in. All I was asked to do was to write a small check to be part of this bigger vision, to collect funds together to make a bigger impact. I think that first year that I was part of that, we actually gave the money, coincidentally, to CALM. So the focus was on advocacy for children and families. And so it all connected again. And I was invited into the board just to start kind of getting my feet wet. And we ended up having a vacancy as president quite suddenly. And I got pushed again. Amy, you can do it. We will help you. We'll support you. And lo and behold, I was the president of the Women's Fund.
I love that. I love that. And so now let's go to CALM. And originally, at the top of this show, I said CALM, and I said later, let's come back and define it. So let's come back and define it. That's a board you're serving on now, not yet board president.
Oh, gosh. No. Please.
But on CALM, and it's an incredible organization.
It is.
Child Abuse Listening and Mediation is what CALM stands for.
That's right.
And what is its mission, and what are some of their goals?
Well, their tagline for their mission is to protect the most important relationship in the world. Really, what that is about supporting and advocating children and families. And 50% of the work that they do is child abuse prevention, and that is through parenting classes. That is through bringing CALM therapists into the schools where they can see some signs of some behavioral issues in children, maybe even some behavioral issues in teachers, where they're reacting in a way that's going to not help the situation. And they're empowering teachers, they're empowering students, they're empowering the school district, they're empowering parents, and it's incredible work. It's probably the most proud work that I feel. I'm obviously very behind the scenes on being in that board.
Yes.
I'm really proud of the work that we're doing and the people I work alongside in that board.
It's an incredible organization, and it really is county-wide and reaching north, south, and mid. Let's go back to mid in the valley. We talked about something on the shelf. We're going to put it back on the table, which is CALM and its work with the Chumash Education Center. You want to say something about that?
I can remember sitting in a board meeting actually quite recently, because we've now bridged the gap between counties, and we have both North County and South County board members on the board of CALM, which is so important. And we were meeting at the Santa Barbara Foundation office in Santa Maria, and they invited a guest, and it was a therapist that's working on the tribal grounds, invited her to speak a little bit about the work she's doing, and she's been there over a year, is my understanding. And I got tears in my eyes as she was sharing the stories of how she's impacting the children and families on the reservation. When I was working there were a lot of things I was concerned about. There were a lot of children that had many, many struggles and concerns, and I felt helpless. My work there was to do reading intervention. It was not to guide families through, some of the things they were going through. So I'm so thrilled that there was a vision and cast, and that now Calm is embedded there at the tribal hall. It's just magical.
It is magical, really. And I want to pause for a moment just to say how much the education community really does appreciate the work of Calm that you're doing with the youth and the students and teachers and staff in schools too.
Yes.
It's really an empowering organization to help the staff work with the students and ensure that there's systematic changes, not
That's
just
right.
moment-to-moment changes. So really appreciate
That's
the
right.
work of Calm.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So a few moments ago, you talked about the restaurant that you and your husband co-own, Ulivetos, Trattoria Ulivetos in
Ooh, good job,
Orchid.
good job.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And I
Yes.
know it because it is so delicious. It's amazing. One of
Yes.
the best, I think, in the county, if not state, nation.
Very kind.
But in terms of the food that it prepares, the service that it provides, but also the philanthropic ways in which it gives back to the community. So I want to give you a moment to talk about all and any of that.
Oh, that's really kind. We have been in business for over 10 years. More recently, we were acknowledged, and it was such an honor by the Chamber as the Small Business of the Year.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It is all about my husband, so I really can't take any of the credit for this, but he is, I'm going to get emotional. He is an incredibly hardworking, devoted family man, and he is living his dream, owning his own restaurant, and he has worked the hardest of jobs in the hardest of situations. 13 years old, was a baker for a family business and worked all through the night. Didn't get the educational opportunities that I got, but he was a hard worker, and he believed in the value of work using his hands and making something beautiful for people. And he continues to do that. And what I really love as well is just his heart for the community and how our business has been able, because of the success, because of the support of people like you that come and eat on a regular basis, then we can give back. We are able to donate gift cards. We are able to do dinners for 10. I mean, if you go to any of our local galas, you will hear Jim Glein saying, "Alfonso, will you do a second one?" And Alfonso always says yes. I mean, his heart is for this community and giving. And we may not always be able to write the largest checks, but we can give of our time.
Right.
And that is a lot of times even more valuable, especially when you have a family, and we have 4 children. So I can't say enough, not only about my husband, but about the support of the community. It means so much.
That's a very lovely tribute to Alfonso. And it's really the family. It's you as a couple, I think, that it's so strong in the community. I love to hear about him and this work ethic that he grew up having, meeting, serving, as well as
Yes.
your service and education. So I think it all comes together in such a
Yeah.
synergy clearly
Yes.
after 10 years and being awarded by the Chamber. That's really fantastic. And we all thank you for the contributions that together that you make to the community, truly. Another award you received recently was from the Santa Barbara Foundation. So can you describe what that award is for those who are watching and think, okay, what would that award be?
Right.
And then talk about your reaction to receiving that award.
Well, Celebrate Philanthropy has been going on, I want to say it's maybe 10 years. And when you look at the list of the recipients over the years, it is quite humbling. And when I received the call from Lynette Dunn at the Santa Barbara Foundation that I had been nominated and selected, I was speechless. I felt incredibly humble. I felt unworthy. I felt way too young to be getting this award because I feel like my work is just getting started.
Right.
There's going to be even more freedom when my children are a little bit older, and I have even more time for philanthropy. But I'm just so honored that I was given this gift, this award, and the people that come to that celebration. They are the highest caliber in this community. There's hardly anyone you don't know, and everyone is cheering you on and supporting you. And the chance to get to speak in front of all those people and share my story was very empowering. And I feel like I don't know where to go from here after receiving that award, but I'm hoping that there's still more. There's still more.
There absolutely is more. And remember, we talked about the theme, Amy, that every time, wherever you go, you just keep going up. And so wherever up is where I think you're headed for sure. And clearly you're in the company of those just like you in terms of being impactful and influential in the community. Amy, you've spoken today about your children. I don't know the ages of your children, but you have 4.
Yes.
Would you mind telling us the ages of your children?
Yes, I have 4 sons. Giacomo is 15 and a half, Luciano is 13, Valentino is 9, and Massimo is 7.
I love their names.
Thank you.
I'm curious how Ulivetto and all of
Yes.
these names came to be, and Alfonso, and then
Yes,
there's
yeah.
Amy.
Yes, yes.
I love it. And so you have young kids at home, and I know that they've really influenced you in terms of your drive, of your work. Say a little bit about your kids and what they have meant to you in terms of your drive for what you do for education and for youth and the community.
You know, that has been something that is both a joy and also a struggle because your children don't always understand why you're leaving to go to a meeting at night. They don't always understand why we're all folding these mailers when we should be like watching a movie or just doing something fun outside and going to the park.
Right.
But every time they've questioned any of those things, I tell them, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this to build a better world for you guys for when you get older. And so they have empowered me deeply in every way. And again, that goes back to the arts and wanting to make sure that my children get to draw, that they get to sing, that they get to play an instrument, whether or not we have the financial means or not, that they have those opportunities. But my second son, Luciano, is, if I can just speak a second, he's probably my biggest inspiration of my children. Luciano was diagnosed with autism when he was 2. It shook our family to its core. A lot of changes happened, but it's added another dimension to my philanthropy and to my advocacy and to my heart, which is to make sure that no child is ever marginalized, that every child has an opportunity for everything, and to be a voice for those that may not have a voice. You know, my son didn't speak for many years, and we had speech therapists in and out of our house for years. And I am so grateful for the village of different therapists and teachers that came into our lives and helped us. I don't have any choice but to give back based upon what I've received for our family.
That's lovely. Talk about advocating for every single child, for each of his or her needs. It's clearly what you did for your son.
That's right.
And what you do now through all of the different organizations in which you serve. So, Amy, we've talked about the fact that you've ascended in every position you've ever had, and somebody who's watching today will say, wow, Amy is such a community leader and such a success. So let's talk about both of those phrases because they mean so many different things to different people. When you close out a day or a week and look back and go, phew, that was a good one. I was a success. What does that mean to you?
Ooh, that is a really tough one. And every night I do go to bed thinking about all the things I didn't get done. And I think a lot of busy moms do that, right?
Right.
But for the most part, I think, was I kind? Did I celebrate people? Did I do my best? Did I give thanks? Did my children know that I love them? And did they get to see me? Was I present? And did I give back? You know, did I give back as an act of worship, as an act of gratitude for all that I've been given?
Wonderful. What a great example right there of leadership. And when those who are watching the show play that back, they'll say, yes, that's something that I should be using as a checklist as well. I really appreciate those thoughts. And in terms of you as a leader, you talked earlier about OCAF, the Orchid Children's Art Foundation, and when you started there, it was a new beginning. You've never done that before, and you've evolved. You've evolved and changed. So leadership, I know you agree that it's something that you evolve with. So how do you continue to hone that leadership aspect and really get better, improve continually?
Right. Well, I'm a really big believer in mentorship. I really believe you're always seeking out people that you can learn from, that can teach you, that you can grow with. And that means sometimes being held accountable and having hard things said and having to hear hard things. But that is where the growth happens. Any workshop, any leadership convention, any chance that I can get to grow and to learn, a book that's offered to me as a suggestion or someone loans me, I'm going to take advantage of all of that, because if I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I'm not doing my best. So that would be what I would say, what propels me is always growing, always learning, always asking for help, always being mentored. And then I learn also from mentoring others. And I think that's an important thing. Be a mentor and be mentored.
Let's talk about some of the mentors in your life. I know you have many, and they're really important to you. This would be a great time to say a few of their names and what they've taught you.
Oh, there's too many.
There are.
Because in every season of life, it feels as if, because mentorship was taught to me very early on, that I always seek that out, and then they find me as well. But I would say Diane Adam, who is chair of the Santa Barbara Foundation, has been an incredible mentor to me. Shannon Seifert, CEO of the YMCA. Both of my pastors, I have an incredible church I'm part of, Bruce Lethbridge and Israel Gonzalez, pastor and associate pastor. They lead me and they grow me and they challenge me daily. And so those are just a few that I would just say, these are the people that really shape me and really cheer me on and lead me.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know there are 100 others that you could talk about, but I really appreciate hearing a few and what they've taught you. With just a few moments left of our program, I want to talk about the music that you do, the music you teach. You are a performer, a musician, you're a business owner in more than just the restaurant, in other ways too. So we'll have to do a part 2 of the show at some point.
Okay.
But let's talk a little bit about the music very quickly that you're working with in schools right now, specifically Les Miserables is coming up.
Yes.
So say something about that.
I should not be here, Susan, is what the tech crew is waiting for me actually right now.
I think they're outside.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so I've had an incredible opportunity teaching Glee Club for the last 5 years at St. Joseph High School, and I've done Glee at several different schools. St. Joseph just happened to be where I landed and felt a real home there instantly, and now I have a son going there and another one coming in. So we are also launching a musical. This is of a grandiose scale that I've never been part of, even though I have been part of many productions over the years, both from being, in elementary school, high school, in my 20s when I worked for Arts Outreach out of the San Ynez Valley and helped there. But this is pretty grand scale, and Les Miserables is a pretty big undertaking. I had the honor to meet Hugh Jackman at the Bacara back in November when he was being honored for an award, and I told him I was going to be directing Les Mis, and he said, that is a really big undertaking. And I said, I'm going to prove Hugh Jackman wrong. I'm going to do this show, and it's been the most life-giving work. The students being impacted, the community members being impacted by the story, by being part of something so large. It's pretty, I know I've used the word magical a couple times today, but it really has been magical.
Amy, I have to turn that around and say I think you're pretty magical. You really are. You somehow sprinkle this magic dust on everything that you touch. Seems to really have such an influence and impact on youth, on the community, on the philanthropy that you're passing on. It doesn't stop just with you. It seems like it just keeps going. And I just want to say on behalf of the community and the audience who are watching today, the viewers, thank you to you. Really, your influence. I said it was instrumental when we started, and it really is. All the music, the education, clearly your family, and all that you've accomplished really rolls in together, and we benefit from you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
What an honor. Thank you.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of Schools of Thought.